And we are back. I'm Chris Evans, the CEO and owner of Survival Dispatch. It's that time of year again to start our hurricane prep series. Hurricane season starts next week, and probably the number one thing that people need to accomplish after a hurricane goes through is to have some power until the power company turns the lights back on, literally. So we've done some pretty extensive reviews in the past on large scale power stations that you can add on to modular stuff where you can add additional batteries onto them. We're going to come from a different angle today because we've had a lot of requests from people for something that's a little bit more economical. So we've been working with Dabbsson for several years, and here's the thing. There's countless power stations out there on the market, but only a handful of companies actually manufacture their own power stations. Most of them use one of 6 or 7 different power station manufacturers, and they slap a label on it. Dabbsson make their own power stations, number one. Number two, they've got the best batteries at the best price, bar none. So what we typically do is we break it down into how much it costs you per watt hour. So for LifePo 4 batteries, like the high-end quality batteries, you're typically looking at somewhere between 75 cents and $1.25 per watt hour. And all of the Dabbsson units that we've tested have come in well below that. They charge faster than other units. So the battery is a really, really big consideration. Now back to the economy side of things. Again, we've had a number of requests for people asking for something that's a little bit less expensive. So this guy here, brand new Dabbsson 600L, goes on sale today. It's only $299 list price. We've got a discount code down below in the description that gets you 10% off. So it's essentially $269. And that's about as low as you can get for something that has a decent sized battery. So this has a 768 watt hour battery and also has decent output. So the model number 600L essentially indicates that it has 600 watts of continuous AC output power. However, this has a boost feature in it. And what the boost feature is if you use devices that don't need perfectly clean electricity, perfectly clean sine wave, you can get away with increasing the wattage draw from this type of device. So even though it does 600 watts pure sine wave, you can go 900 watts on a little bit of dirty power, but it's really good for heating devices. And I've brought out our trusty Conair 1875 watt hair dryer because any of y'all who have women in the house, no offense to women, probably know that the number one thing for tripping breakers and GFIs is typically hair dryers. They got a big pull on them. So the test for us for these smaller power stations is, can we plug in that blow dryer and will it run it on the middle setting for the heat but the high setting for the fan? Because that's kind of the minimum for women to dry their hair. If it's anything below that, it's pretty much useless. So let's get into some of the specifications and ports on this that I haven't mentioned already. It has 2 AC ports on the front here. You can turn them on and off using this little button here. When you turn them on, it lights up in the display panel here, it tells you they're on. If you use the smartphone app, same thing, you can control it. If you touch it here, push this button, it'll make a change in the interface on the smartphone app. You have another button over here that turns the 12 volt car port on and off. Also turns on your USB ports. So as you can see, I'll just tip it up a little bit. You've got 2 USB-C ports here. One of them is a full 100 watt PDW port, this one here. And you have a couple of USB-A ports as well in addition to that. Plus it comes with a light. So you push it once, it turns it on. You push it twice, gets a little bit brighter. Push it 3 times, and it'll go into a strobe type function if you're in an emergency. Push it a 4th time, and it shuts it off. So it ships with a 12 volt charging cable. So you can plug this into the back, the yellow end of this connector, right here, and plug it into your car 12 volt port. Charge this up while you're on the go or while you're camping. Or, of course, you can use an AC cable, and it's just a standard AC cable, same thing that you typically plug in, computer desktop towers, those sort of things, regular old cable. But you do get much faster charging when using that type of cable. We charged this thing up from 0. We drained it all the way down, and we were able to get a full charge in 1.5 hours. The documentation says it takes 70 minutes, 1.7 hours, but we were able to do it in 1.5 hours. And that's kind of typical of Dabbsson, to be quite honest with you. All of their specifications, their power stations, every last one that we've put our hands on exceeds whatever the specifications are. Whereas other brands that we've put our hands on, that's not necessarily the case. We're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses. So when a power station or any particular product fails, the first thing we do is we let the manufacturer know, hey, we have a problem with this device. We don't go ahead and publish a video on it. And I'm thankful that that's been our policy since we acquired this company over 3 years ago. A number of times we've got a product, we've turned it on, it hasn't worked properly, we've reached out to the manufacturer, they've asked us to send it back, we send it back to them, then lo and behold we get an email that says, hey, check out the attached pictures, there was shipping damage internally and something was broken, let us send you another unit. They send another unit, we tested, everything's fine, then we'll share that with our audience. But again, we're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses. So honestly, just a guess at the actual number, but somewhere between 10 and 15% of the products that we get sent actually make it onto our channel. The balance do not make it onto our channel because it's not something that we want to stand behind. But you wouldn't see that because, again, we're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses. So with that being said, let's plug this the Conair in, just because, like I said, this is our test. This is a crappy old dryer that we just keep hanging around for test purposes. So easy to plug in, and if you look closely here, you'll see that the temperature in the top switch is set right in the middle, and I'm gonna go 1, 2. So I'm gonna move this away a little bit from my microphone so you can hear the fan is on high speed. You can see that the temperature switch is smack dab in the middle. And I know you probably can't see the display on this. I'll tip it up and hopefully it does show up. But we're drawing over 600 watts right now, which is what this unit's rated for. So we're consuming about 620 watts. Because this is a simple heating device, this thing will run all day long in this setting. Of course, if I kick it up into the top one, which is 1875 watts, that goes beyond the 900 watt boost point, but that is not what this power station was designed to do. So this is always our litmus test. We've had units, like I say, in the past from other people that have failed, and they failed the Conair 1875 test. That's a survival dispatch unique thing. But the way I figure it is if we can't use that, then the overall usability is probably not great. Comes with a 36-month warranty. There's a QR code on this form that comes in the box. Really simple to register. And again, we've been impressed with Dabbsson from the get-go. End of story. I wish I could name some of the other ones that we're not so impressed with, but put it this way, if you haven't seen it on Survival Dispatch, there's a pretty good chance we've had our hands on it, and a pretty good chance it's not really decent quality. So I want to bring up a couple things here, and again, I want to mention that this just went on sale today, $2.99, and there's a link down below in the description, and code SURVDISP. We're not an affiliate. We don't get paid any affiliate commission on this, by the way. For those of you who aren't aware, our purpose, our mission at Survival Dispatch is to share information, dispatch information with Americans and friends of America to survive in these very uncertain times. And we preach on a constant basis that you should be prepping for whatever the thing is that's most likely to happen, pardon me, in your part of the country or your part of the world. So for those of us down here in the Southeast, we're headquartered out of Florida, but we have a home in Georgia as well, hurricanes. If you live, let's say, in Oklahoma, you should be prepping for tornadoes, hailstorms, which of course bring power outages with them in addition to hurricanes. If you live in Southern California, you probably want to be prepping for wildfires. If you live in the Northeast, you probably want to be prepping for winter storms, ice storms, snowstorms, those sort of things. So $269 for this. I did the math on it. Let me just pull it up here quickly. So when you use our coupon at $269, it's 35.1 cents per watt hour. That's absolutely phenomenal. Again, as I mentioned, typical price for LifePo 4 batteries. And here's the deal with LifePo versus NiCad. LifePo batteries are typically good for 5,000 charge cycles up to 80%. Now the specifications from Dabbsson, they always err on the side of caution. They say it's good for 4,000 charge cycles, which is approximately 10 years of use. I would not be surprised to see this actually get 6,000 charge cycles out of it, because that's what the high-end LifePo batteries, that's what they crank out typically. Now, if you didn't have our coupon and you bought this on the pre-order, so it's been available for a little while on a pre-order, which, by the way, we've had this unit for 3 months. This has been my primary backup power source for when we're in the field, when I go to our cabin in Georgia. I've been using it for 3 months with no faults whatsoever. But let's say you bought it for $284 on the pre-sale. That works out to 37 cents per watt hour. And even if you were to pay the $299 and you didn't use our discount code SURV, let me double check it. I didn't get to make the coupon code. Usually I make it something like SD whatever, but SURV DISP gets you 10% off. But even if you didn't use that and you paid the $299 on this, that's still only 52 cents per watt hour. I mean, how they're coming up with that type of price, especially considering the fact that there are still tariffs in place. Last I heard, it's somewhere around 50% for this type of product. Absolutely phenomenal price point on them, put it that way. Let's see some of the other stuff. Oh, you know what I really like about this power station? It's super quiet. It's 25 decibels when the fan kicks on to cool it when you have it, doing continuous use. That's ridiculously low. I'm not a sound engineer, but essentially as decibels go up, it's exponential. So for example, if you were to go from 90 decibels to 100 decibels, it's not a 10% increase in sound output. It's many times that. It's exponential. So 25 decibels is kind of like a whisper. I have other power stations in my office right now inside, and if I use them for testing purposes while I'm in my office, I can't. I have to take them out of my office, because when the fans kick in, I can't hear myself think. Of course, you don't want something to overheat. It might not be the most important thing to you in an emergency situation, but think in terms of hurricane comes through, knocks out the power grid, and it's nighttime, you want to sleep, you want to run devices off this. Maybe you're watching, movies on your TV, so you're powering your TV and you're powering your laptop or your phone. The last thing you want to do is hear a fan running in the background all the time. So super impressed with how quiet this is. The other thing that I enjoyed about this, using it in the field, was it only weighs 17 pounds. So we got sent this battery not too long ago, and I'm not going to mention the company. You'll see it in a future review. It's not a bad product at all, but it looks like it's the size of a marine battery out of a boat, basically. Golly, let me tell you, that thing is insanely freaking heavy. It's got to weigh 65, 70 pounds. I'd have to verify that, but I couldn't believe how heavy it was when I picked it up from the front door when it was being shipped. 17.6 pounds on the Dabbsson 600L. It's got a handle on the back, ultra portable. That's just a great deal. I want to point something else out that you probably won't hear in any other reviews. Do you notice how the edges are angled on this? So depending on your vernacular, you could say it's beveled, you could say it's chamfered, whatever the case may be. There's a reason for that. I had a decent quality power station on my desk 3 years ago from a major name who shall remain unnamed, and I'm blind in my left eye. And it was sitting on my left-hand side on my desk, and I forgot it was there. And I went to get up, and I moved like this, and I knocked it off my desk, and it hit the hardwood floors, and it literally shattered into 100 pieces. So some of the power stations out there that are kind of, call it commercial industrial use, that are made out of metal housings and stuff, that's a complete non-issue. These plastics are super strong these days, but when you have rigid square edges and they fall off a desk because somebody like me knocks them off, it's kind of the end of that unit, and that sucks. I'll tell you something else that happened with a power station as well, where I watched the delivery driver drop it from 2 feet off the ground at the front door, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me, you know. So I went out and I grabbed it, I brought it in. Usually these things come with a charge on them, maybe not a full charge, but enough that you can turn them on. And I went to turn it on and I pushed the power button and it was flopping around inside. That guy dropping it from 2 feet high, or somebody before him who had their hands on it and mishandled it, broke the innards of it, and that was the end of that. So of course I had to reach out to the manufacturer, tell them what happened. They put a claim in with the carrier, but there's something to be said for durability, especially if you're going to use these in any type of portable capacity. You know, say for example you're going camping, this is a good size. I mean, it's literally perfect. You can get panels from Dabbsson, 120 watts and 210 watts to take with you, you know, when you're off the grid, to keep these things charged up. Want to briefly mention something, and by the way, there'll be some links down below where you can get them bundled together, so you can get this plus a solar panel. I've done a ton of testing with solar panels here in Florida, and you would think, being the Sunshine State, this would be, you know, a great place for solar adoption, and it's not. There are other states who have far more solar adoption than we do. But the one thing I noticed with all these portable solar panels is that if you monitor the display, or you monitor it on a cell phone, what you'll find is if the sun is shining on an angle like this and it's perfectly perpendicular to the panel, that you can get what it's rated for. And I know people who've got better than what it's rated for. But as soon as the angle of the sun changes relative to your solar panel, it's not unusual to see it to literally fall off a cliff. I've seen 200 watt panels putting out somewhere around 50 watts because their angle to the sun is not perfectly right on the money. So if you do have a power station that you take camping with you, you take off grid, and you have solar panels, pay attention to them and pay attention to the angle to the sun, because it'll make a huge difference in how much energy they're capturing and actually putting into these power stations, which then in turn is a big deal as far as, well, how much sunlight do we have, and how much battery do we have to charge, and how much solar panel do we have. You could get caught in a situation, I've been caught in this situation, where we were using heavily through the day and night, and we could never get them caught up. Not this one, but other power stations. We just couldn't get them caught up because we didn't have enough solar panel power, and we didn't have time to babysit it as the, you know, Earth's and the sun's angles change to each other. So Dabbsson do have some bundled prices on those. You can use the same discount code that we've got for 10% off. And let me just quickly go through my notes here. I don't have Alzheimer's, but it's sometimes. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget. So sometimes I have to look this stuff up just to make sure that I know that I've covered all of the bases. It looks like I've covered everything on the back. You've got, again, not only, I want to mention that, by the way, this port here and this connector here for the 12 volt in your car, this is the same connector that the solar panels have. So if you want to use somebody else's solar panels with this and you have one input port, just want to mention this. Like if you buy from Dabbsson a 200 or 120 watt or 210 watt panel, you only have to plug it in here, you're done, right? But if you wanted to string multiple solar panels together, not all of them could be wired together in series. Make sure you check that, regardless of whose products you're buying. Otherwise, if they can't be run in series, so what that means is we take this solar panel, we plug it into this solar panel, and we plug it into the power station next after that. The other thing, depending on what off the grid means to you, so if you're, you know, an RVer, for example, and you don't want to hear a generator running all of the time, but most RVs, of course, have a generator, my recommendation is that you charge these suckers up once a day off your generator. It's way faster than solar, and that way if you're sitting around the campfire, you're sitting outside, maybe you got a picnic table or an outdoor table to eat at while you're camping, you can run stuff off of this without hearing the generator running nonstop and without the generator burning up fuel. Our SOP, standard operating procedure for survival dispatch here in Florida, is what we do is we have propane generators. They're actually dual fuel, so you can run propane or you can run gas on them. The advantage of propane is it never goes bad, so you can stack up as many tanks of propane as you want and they'll be good indefinitely. Whereas if it's gas powered, essentially every 90 days you should be taking the fuel that you have stored, dump it in your vehicle, take your jerry cans to the gas station, fill them up, put some fuel stabilizer in them. You may even want to put some octane booster in them. As octane goes down, exhaust gas temperatures go up, and that's when you start melting pistons to the cylinder walls. So propane, way easier. So what we do here is we have a massive power bank of 23,000 watt hours stacked up in our laundry room. And I take our propane generators and I run them for an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, and that keeps them fully charged. Now, we're not running AC. We do have the ability to run some 240 volt stuff off of there if we choose to, which we typically don't do. The one exception would be is if it's an extended grid down situation, we would heat up some water so everybody can have showers and we can wash dishes properly, et cetera, et cetera. But my point is that when you have power stations at your disposal, whether you're off the grid camping or you have an emergency situation, get them charged up as fast as you can with a propane generator is a great way to go. Solar's a great way to go as well. Just recognize that it's going to take a little bit longer. And of course, if you have inclement weather and the grid is down, the solar panels aren't going to do anything for you. So you have to think in terms of the old adage, 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none. In other words, you got to have backups to your backups to your backups, which is precisely what we have. I'm looking over here and we've got about 2,000 watts of solar panels on an angle like that. We've got a bunch of full up ones inside the house, pardon me, and we have 3 generators as well, plus the 23,000 watt hours. But the advantage of this guy really is, number one, it's a low price to get in the game. So you can't please all of the people all the time. I can't remember who said that. It might have been Roosevelt. But either way, when we do reviews on things that are maybe a little bit larger, more expensive, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 units, invariably we get a number of comments from people that say that watching the video is a waste of their time because they can't afford those power stations, and I get it. And that's why we're covering this one today. At $269 for this guy, to be able to keep some of your stuff charged up. For example, if you could keep your phone charged up, you can keep your radios charged up in case the cell phone network goes down. And we're going to be bringing you some really interesting stuff, by the way, on comms with a business license instead of using GMRS, FRS radios here shortly. But that's another episode in the Hurricane Prep series. But if you can keep your radios charged up, and by the way, ham radios, GMRS radios, business class radios, they do not chew a lot of battery unless you're on the PTT, the push to talk constantly. As well as the fact cell phones, you know how long it takes to charge your cell phone. It doesn't take a lot of power. To run your laptop doesn't take a lot either. So if you've got your phone and your ham radios and your laptop running, at the very least, you can probably maintain some connectivity to the outside world to get updates on what's going on, regardless of what type of SHTF situation it may be. We're also going to do some coverage, by the way. We're not partnered with Starlink. We have no affiliate relationship with them. I don't even know if they do affiliate relationships. But we went for years here in Florida. Very painful. Our cable will go out every time we had a hurricane, and I work on the internet. And so that was a showstopper for us. And last year we said enough's enough, and we took Elon's offer up to basically get $100 off the Starlink equipment last year and get, I think it was 3 months, October, November, December, right after Hurricane Helene, because we were in its path as well. And I'm feeling really good about going into hurricane season this year. We don't, want to see hurricane damage, but if we get hit with hurricanes this year, in addition to having power for virtually everything, we'll be able to maintain our internet even if cable goes down. We don't have cable anymore, even if the cell phone network goes down. So bottom line is this size of device, you can charge it up pretty quickly from a generator. You should have no problem charging this up well inside of a day from solar panels, as long as it's not cloudy out and storming like it is here right now. We've got a storm moving in. You might even be able to hear the thunder in the background or some of the wind, but not too hard to keep this charged up. And the key thing with this is that you can maintain connectivity to the outside world. That's your emergency perspective. In a non-emergency perspective, it's not heavy. It's easy to take off the grid with you when you go camping, and it's super quiet. So myself, if I go camping and I'm off the grid, the last thing I want to do is hear a generator running nonstop. It kind of defeats the purpose of going for all the peace and quiet. So some of the specifications, just in addition, I want to cover briefly here, is that you can power up to 8 devices at the same time. So the Dabbsson literature shows basically a phone, a camera, a laptop, electric blankets, portable fridge, LED lights, a speaker, and charge up your drone. That's quite a bit, and I'm not going to get into the math today, but if you ever have any questions on this stuff, you got a couple options. You can reach out to support@survivaldispatch.com, and if one of us have the time and bandwidth, we'll do our best to answer your questions and get back to you. But we've created a community, the Guardian community, and Substack right now would be our preferred platform over Patreon for a very important reason. Patreon has somewhat of a track record of deplatforming people where somebody went against a narrative that they didn't appreciate. Substack doesn't do that. So you can go to Substack and sign up as a Guardian for $7.99 a month or $75 a year. You get 2.5 months for free if you sign up for the whole year. And what that does is it gets you an invite to our private Signal chat. We also have a backup chat on Substack in case one or the other goes down. And we have hundreds of Guardians in there that are knowledgeable and that can answer your questions. Tremendous source of camaraderie and community. We actually did it originally because we were looking for a way to keep people informed during SHTF. We had no anticipation that it was going to turn into what it turned out, but I got to tell you, I'm pretty happy with the way that part of the Guardian program turned out. You also get $370 worth of Survival Dispatch Insider e-magazines. Included in the 37 is a 228-page survival guide. We sell them for $10 normally. You get all of them when you sign up as a Guardian. If you had nothing but that survival guide and it was an SHTF situation, you would be able to get through pretty much anything with the information that's included in there. Above and beyond that, you get our full daily situation report 6 days a week. So we don't broadcast typically on Saturdays. It's Sunday through Friday. Each day we broadcast, there's an accompanying situation report. The top portion is usually free, and then the bottom 2/3 is just for paying Guardian members. We're also adding new Guardian features effective this coming week. We're going to put together an emergency network, essentially, where if something breaking happens, something that's an emergency, a terrorist attack, anything like that, we're going to get information out to everybody. It'll be your choice. Could be a text message, could be an email, and that'll be part of the Guardian program. We're also going to do a Sunday threat newsletter that's basically going to give you a list of what the current threats are that we're facing in America in particular, and what you can do to potentially prepare for it, and what to expect, with other links leading to all kinds of things like prepping basics for that type of emergency. So think in terms of, if there's cyber attacks happening and the grid's being shut down, you need something for backup power. It's not just storms, right? And our grid is very, very vulnerable. We have 55,000 substations in America. We have 3 grids, east, west, and Texas. They occasionally connect to push power one direction or another, but most of the time they're isolated. Out of the 55,000 substations, 9 of them are at choke points that will take power down to 95% of America. And then above and beyond that, the current lead time for replacement transformers, because guess what, we don't make them ourselves, they typically come from Germany or Asia, is up to 48 months now. And we do not have a stockpile of them. So now you're back to this. What do you have for backup power. If you're watching this, for example, and you have diabetes and you need to keep your insulin in a fridge or chilled, this will run a small bar fridge. Now, depending on who you want to believe, I think FEMA here in Florida at one point in time said you had to run your fridge for something like an hour a day. And I don't know that that's sufficient for most fridges, but you should probably run them several times during the day, maybe for a half hour, 45 minutes, 2, 3, 4 times a day. This will run a small bar fridge and could potentially save your life if your medication needs to be refrigerated. It's an important consideration. Anyway, that notification system and the current threat newsletter are brand new for Survival Dispatch insiders. It's happening this week. And if you have questions about these sort of things and you can't catch somebody who's part of the Survival Dispatch team, I can tell you right now, one of our guardians will assist you. And we've built a brain trust and a community of camaraderie there. So give me a second here again, because I don't have Alzheimer's. I get sometimes. Sometimes I remember, sometimes I forget. Want to mention a couple other things. The smartphone app, actually, this is kind of important. The Dabbsson smartphone app works, period. Doesn't matter if it's a 600L or another power station. I would hazard to guess that somewhere around maybe 30-40% of power stations out there that the smartphone app does not work. It's extremely frustrating. I can't tell you how much of my time's been wasted over the years messing around with a smartphone app that just won't work. It won't connect to the thing, blah, 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 blah. The app for the Dabbssons works exceptionally well, so that's another bonus as well. So you can do things like you can do time management. You can have it, for example, fire up the AC points from this point in time to this point in time, because you're measuring it, right? You're what's the word I'm looking for? You're basically giving it out in small pieces, and that's not the right word, but I've forgotten the right word, so that's okay. You can also customize when it's going to charge up, when it's going to take an input from another source, when the whole thing turns on and off. And let's just quickly go through some of the specs here. So this is the Dabbsson 600L, just released today, $299. Use the discount code down below, SURVDISP, 10% off. Get it for $269. 17.6 pounds, 12.8 by 7.4 by 8.4 inches. The temperatures typically runs in the range of anywhere from 32 degrees to 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Storage should be between 14 degrees Fahrenheit and 113 degrees Fahrenheit. That's another thing actually that's interesting for the Dabbssons. This speaks to the quality of their batteries. When you go below 32 degrees with rechargeable batteries like this, many times they drain in the blink of an eye. And well, you've probably seen if you live up north with your cars and it gets brutally cold outside, next thing you know, you got to get somebody to give you a boost. We actually tested, not this model, but another Dabbsson model with the same batteries in it at our place in Georgia during the winter time, and it did not discharge like the cheap batteries. They've got extremely high quality batteries. You got 768 watt hours of storage here. You've got 600 watts of pure sine wave power, but you can take that up to 900 watts continuous AC output power, but it's a little bit on the dirty side. So what do I mean by that, by the way? You don't want to run this thing over 600 watts with any electronic equipment that's very sensitive to the quality of power that's being pushed into them. So, for example, you would not want to run a laptop, a TV, smartphone, tablet, whatever, going over the 600 watts, putting it into boost mode for those guys. That would not be the best decision to use them in. Other than that, golly, I think we pretty much covered everything here. We've covered all the ports. We've got a couple FAQ things I'll share with you. And actually, I'm glad I scrolled down far enough to catch this, because this is another thing that's not consistent with all power stations. This power station, you can use it while it's being charged. A lot of power stations, you can't do that. While they're being charged, you can't use them for any output purposes. Not all of them, but you will run across them out there. So it's something that's important to consider. Again, 600 watts continuous AC output power, boost mode's up to 900 watts. The fan, if you get this thing really hot, you might get it up to 50 decibels, they say. I'm telling you right now, we run decibel meters, and wouldn't even register. You wouldn't even hear this thing running. It's whisper quiet. How long does it take to charge? They say 1.7 hours. We did 1.5 hours with the AC charger, which is a very fast charging unit. You can charge by AC and solar at the same time. Not a lot of other ones are capable of doing that. Other than that, though, I think that pretty much covers all of the bases on this guy here. You know, I want to point out one more time how solid the case is on these Dabbssons. It's a deal, okay? When you buy these essentially injection molded power stations, they're not all equal, they're not all durable. And again, if you're blind like I am and you happen to knock one off, we actually did some drop tests on some of these power stations. I'm not doing a drop test on this one because I really like this one. I'm going to keep it for my own personal use. But again, I think that pretty much wraps it all up. Any questions, support at survivaldispatch.com. If by chance we don't get back to you, go to Substack. So survivaldispatchnews.com will take you to our Substack. Sign up as a Guardian, $7.99 a month or $75 for the year. I see everybody who does that, but you send an email to support at survivaldispatch.com after you install Signal on your phone. We send you an invite, and boom, you're part of that community. And you have the backup chat and Substack as well, plus all the other stuff that I've already mentioned to you. I think that's it. The next broadcast for the Hurricane Prep series is probably going to be on a combination of different communication systems. We're really going to focus on business class in this first video. We've just got our business class license from the FCC. We've got 5 private channels essentially for a 50-mile circumference around home base here. And we got some really awesome Motorola equipment with it. And bar none, by the way, and we have absolutely zero relationship with buy2wayradios.com when it comes to money. Some vendors we have a relationship with. For example, speaking of powers, speaking of storms, we have links all over the place for EMP Shield. We're the only people who've tested EMP Shields. We hit a test bed with 400,000 volts with a Marks generator over 100 times, and every single device on that test bed was protected. We disconnected the EMP shield, and it smoked everything. And if you go to survivaldispatch.com, the video's up top, says 360,000 volts, because we did not want somebody to come along and say, well, you know, if the humidity of the weather was off by this much, we arced 2 open wires this far. It was 400,000 volts. It was a 20,000 volt transformer and 20 capacitors lit up at the same time, which is very much like an EMP pulse where it all happens at the same time. You get $50 off with our link for EMP Shield, and every time you get $50 off, we get a $50 commission. And that's how we work. Some of us, myself in particular, 15, 16, 17 hours a day, 6-7 days a week around the year to try and bring y'all, you know, what's happening in the world from a survival perspective, news perspective. What are the best products for you to consider investing in? If we didn't have the support from those types of arrangements, plus our guardians, we wouldn't be able to bring this information to you. But we're very passionate over what we do here at Survival Dispatch, and we really, really appreciate your support. That's it. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. God bless America.